What a strange experience I've had with this thing. I wasn't expecting to like it at all. My first impression when it was announced was, that's just a black Asus Ally. But then, days after it was announced, I learned that it was based on Intel architecture. All these other PC handhelds like the Lenovo Legion Go and the Asus Ally are all AMD based, running Z1 Extremes to be specific. This is interesting. I've always ran Intel machines for my personal PC builds. I've never considered why AMD was the choice for compact builds like PC handhelds. I always just assumed it was like a cost thing. After looking into this MSI Claw, I learned that there's just a bunch of challenges with Intel chipsets. For starters, they run hot. To compensate, there are a lot of holes in this thing for airflow. This contributes to its freakish look, but it also serves a function that actually kind of works in its favor. Intel chipsets also supposedly require a ton of power, which is why this thing can run a whole 40-watt TDP. The Asus Ally can only do a max of 25. This isn't exactly a benchmark for how much better this thing will run because they're two completely different chipsets. In fact, right before launch, I heard that the MSI Claw actually ran worse than Z1 Extreme handhelds. If it's coming in at the same price and it looks almost identical, it better have some sort of advantage. When I finally got this thing into my hands, I actually liked the look even less than the rest of the handhelds.
It's kind of uggo. It's kind of gross.
It's too gamery, a bit cringy, too many sharp bits around it. But after using it, it kind of grew on me, by like a lot. It's such a weird device because we don't have much to compare it to. It benchmarked better than some of the other AMD handhelds that I have, but it didn't actually perform better in some use cases. The performance surprised me a lot, but it could also fall apart depending on the game that you want to play.
What the hell?
There is a ton of support for the Z1 Extreme right now, so the Asus ROG Ally and the Lenovo Legion Go get some pretty awesome, timely updates. This might not have that similar support. But even with these quirks here and there, I actually found myself liking this thing a lot. It's just hard to recommend because of those quirks.
Did I feed you? Oh, God. Oh, jeez, don't tell your mother. Oh, God.
This video is sponsored by Sundays. Sundays is healthy dog food that's easy to store and serve. I just scanned this little QR.
Okay, you'll get yours, all right? It's coming.
I just scanned this little QR code on the back and it walked me through how to transition Zim's diet over to this new, healthier food. Sundays is air dried, keeps fresh for a long time, and super easy to serve.
Go. And you can get 50% off of your first order by going to sundaysfordogs.com/wolfden. You get it? That was good. It was a good one. And use code wolfden at checkout. So I actually did take this thing to the beach, and once I took it out of my bag, I remembered that it had a lot of air holes in it. It's basically completely open. The beach is probably a terrible place for this device. I don't want to get sand all up in it, so I just put it right back in my bag. Also, I forgot that Steam requires you to have an internet connection to boot things up for the first time, so I just couldn't play anything anyway.
Oh yeah, I can't play any games because I don't have internet. Cool, man.
The MSI Claw has very similar specs to what we've seen in the past. It's got the exact same 1080p 120Hz screen as the Asus ROG Ally. It's running on Intel's Arc technology. I've made a video on Intel Arc in the past. It's pretty impressive stuff considering that it's Intel's first try at real serious dedicated graphics cards, but the support just isn't quite there yet. The Intel Arc card that I have in one of my desktops does have some weird glitches here and there. This handheld has had a relatively smooth experience with every game that I've played. just some random little quirks. It has the same setup process as pretty much every other Windows handheld, which is to say, it's pretty annoying. It has what I think is the largest charger out of all of them. Certainly the most obtrusive because it requires this thick cable to be plugged into one side. It doesn't come with a case, which I'll dock some points for. The Steam Deck and the Lenovo Legion Go both come with cases, and you're gonna want a case with this if you plan on bringing it anywhere. Tossing it in your bag isn't gonna be too safe for it. I use this TomTalk sling bag that they sent me for, I think, the Steam Deck, but it works great with all of these Windows handhelds. In the hands, it feels just like an Asus ROG Ally, which I like a lot. It's big, but not too big. It is a bit thicker than an Ally, and it is significantly heavier. It has a lot of sharp gamer edges, and it's got some terrible gamer font on the face buttons, and it lets you know that this is for true gaming. And it's positioned in a way that only the people who are looking at you from the other side can see that it's for true gaming. The only buttons that I don't like are the left and right bumpers. I like to press those with the meat of my fingers, kind of like under the knuckle. Every other handheld allows me to do this. The MSI Claw does not. Those buttons are just not long enough horizontally. Also, this suffers from an issue I've experienced with some third-party controllers and even the ROG Ally. The thumbstick has like a grinding spot on the top. You can even see the plastic stick gate has cut into the thumbstick. High-end controllers and handhelds really need a smooth gate ring or something. Something like what an Elite controller has. It's kind of amazing that the device can hurt itself with a mechanism that is necessary to its function. These issues kind of put a damper on an otherwise great ergonomic experience. Just like every other Windows handheld, MSI has made their own launcher for it. I actually kind of like it. The whole unit boots up insanely quickly, and it loads right into the launcher without much hesitation at all. And the games you have installed are right there, and they show up automatically, very similar to the Asus Armory Crate. But that one seemed to show a weird selection of my installed apps. This one got everything right without any additional input. I did add Steam to mine, which is very easy because I noticed that that wasn't there, but it is in the corner. You see all of the launchers up there at the top, so this wasn't something I necessarily had to do. Just like every other handheld, there's a button right here that brings up an overlay. This is one of the more broken overlays. Sometimes it's wide for no reason, and when it's broken like that, the area you click stays in place, so it's like off-center and you can't click anything with any accuracy. I've also had an issue where the brightness slider just doesn't do anything. Now it's doing it. Also, when you go deeper into the MSI menus, there's like check boxes where there should be radial menus or drop downs. It becomes a bit of a UI nightmare sometimes, which I guess is kind of par for the course with these handhelds. Everything on here updated just fine. I did have to go to the MSI website just to make sure that all of my drivers were updated, and I downloaded a few and they installed. So it made me believe that maybe they weren't updated, but everything seemed to work fine. That's something I shouldn't have to do, but I always do because some of these handhelds require you to do it.
Why would the Intel graphics driver tell me why the Intel graphics drivers would be from an unknown source? Tell me.
It does have an updater in the MSI software, but those things aren't always accurate. I hate that I have to do this, but you do have to do this sometimes. Because one of you is going to yell at me that the drivers are more updated on the website than they are in the forget it. Why are we even? The first thing that I wanted to do was check the 3D Mark benchmarks because I've done that with all the other devices, and I'm just curious. It like way overperformed the competition. At max TDP, which is 40 watts in the performance mode, it got around 3,800. I ran each test just 3 to 4 times. The Asus Ally only got around 2,900, and the Lenovo Legion Go got around 3,200. The Lenovo Legion Go has slightly faster RAM than the Asus Ally, and the MSI has, I think, the same speed RAM as the Asus Ally, but it has double of it, which is why it performed so well. I also ran just one test in the custom performance mode on the MSI with the TDP maxed out, just to see if it performed any different than the performance mode on here. And no, they're exactly the same. So you can just use the performance mode if you want the max power output of this thing. I've been playing a decent amount of Helldivers 2, so that's the first thing I loaded up on here. I usually play it on my Steam Deck, and it runs just fine there, getting upwards of around 60 frames per second, but only half the resolution that the Ally or the Claw would have used. The Ally used to run Helldivers pretty bad at launch, but now it's actually real nice. 1080p, around like 50 frames per second at relatively low settings, and we're getting pretty much exactly the same performance out of the MSI Claw. Not better, not worse. Everything even looks great at these low settings, aside from some weird fire. We've got like PS1 fire in Helldivers on handhelds for some reason. A lot of the reason that I play Helldivers on the Steam Deck is because it's just super easy to use. Everything just updates and runs relatively great on there. It's like a console. But also, PC handhelds tend to always run a little bit hot, and some of them have blaring fans because of that. The Asus ROG Ally is known for having an impressively quiet fan. But now the MSI Claw might just be quieter. And it's not hot to the touch. The Steam Deck and the Ally both get warm, especially around the top. The Lenovo Legion Go can literally burn you by the top USB-C port. It gets extremely hot, and it's just so loud. The MSI Claw is actually cool to the touch. Your hands don't immediately start sweating when you're playing a 3D game. There's always this aura of coolness around it, and honestly, that alone has been enough to impress me about the MSI Claw. Perhaps most impressive was the performance in Call of Duty. That game runs like shit on pretty much every device that I've tried it on. It's just so poorly optimized. It performed actually really good on here. It got well over 80 frames per second, which looks great on this 120 hertz screen. It's not jagged at all or anything, which makes me think it's actually displaying at full resolution. I'm running this at the lowest quality preset, but the minimum settings look great. Maybe they updated the game or something, but this is running like a dream. The problem is when I bump the quality preset up just one notch. I figured this would give me a slight boost in texture detail while sacrificing some frame rate or something. Nope, it just straight up breaks the game. You just can't see anything. This is just very much in line with my thoughts on ARC GPUs. Sometimes it works awesome, and sometimes it's just gonna get weird. There really should be some sort of compatibility list for the MSI Claw specifically, but just for Intel ARC GPUs in general. The closest thing that I've been able to find is on the r/Intel ARC subreddit. I found this one post that just has a couple of games on it. And even on there, this post says that Modern Warfare 2 needs some improvements. FPS jumps too much. That honestly might be fixed by now. Now we just have different issues. That's technically a different game than what I played, but it's also technically the same game. But the weird nothing showing up glitch doesn't really affect me too much because I was totally fine with the lowest quality settings. Everything looked great. I'm totally gonna use this when I'm like grinding guns for Warzone, when I'm like laying on the couch or laying in bed or something. I'm a little concerned about battery life just because of how much power this thing can pull. Every other PC handheld has pretty abysmal battery life anyway, so I usually don't play them off the charger anyway. I had a decently long play session on the couch with Call of Duty, and it still had a bit of battery left by the end. The MSI Claw has a 53 watt-hour battery, and they claim it's capable of 2 hours of gaming at maximum load, which sounds too good to be true. And it's not something I can actually confirm, but I can confirm that the battery life is not any worse than any of the other previous handhelds that I've tried. The Steam Deck is still the king of battery life, if battery life is your concern. Also, I've had this thing on for like, I want to say somewhere around 2.5 or 3 hours, and I'm just in a Chrome window with the brightness blaring, and it's at about 50% now. But that's me not doing anything, so that's actually not great news. This certainly is a weird one. I actually really like what I've experienced. The biggest hiccup is the compatibility. I feel like you can't reasonably predict what is going on here and what is gonna completely break this thing. I think it's up to MSI to release some sort of compatibility list for this thing. Asus doesn't really need that because everything seems to work at least okay on the Z1 Extreme processor, and they've been really good at releasing timely updates. Whenever there's a new game that might have something that needs tweaking, they almost immediately release an update for it. But MSI and Intel need to do a little bit of catching up. This is relatively new technology here. Maybe this was a little too early to release this, but I do like that it's giving us a different take in the PC handheld space, even if it is strikingly similar at first glance. It's gonna be hard for me to recommend this one because it could just get wacky on you. Maybe you wanna play Grand Theft Auto 5 on this thing. I can't recommend this because I don't know how that specific game's gonna act. This particular MSI Claw cost me $800, which is on the higher end compared to the others. It does come with 1 terabyte of storage. I think if you're gonna get the MSI Claw, that's probably the version to get.
This is actually going to be huge points against it because the SSD is under this fan right here, which means you're going to have to take out this whole piece, including the heatsink that's over the CPU GPU, if you want to get to that SSD. So this is significantly less upgradable than the rest of the handhelds. Massive L on MSI's part.
The Lenovo Legion Go is just $750 at 1 terabyte. And the Asus ROG Ally is $700 for half a terabyte. But it's frequently on sale. It's even on sale right now for just $600. That one might drive the best value. They all do such a great job of making you just want to walk up the price ladder. The Steam Deck is still the king of the space, but it's Linux, and I understand not everything's gonna run on it. For the Steam Deck, you can at least look up their compatibility list, and if there's anything that isn't gonna run on the Steam Deck, you can consider a Windows handheld. Isn't that nice? From there, you sure do have a lot of options now. I'm gonna be using the Claw a bit more because I do like how it runs, but I am gonna need to see a little more from the Claw before I can start recommending it to others. The performance is just too spotty right now. It's weird. It's a weird one.
Some things that I waved off initially are starting to get a little more on my nerves. For example, the thumbstick grinding is just absolutely unacceptable. It's an impedance in some of these games. The SSD not being that easily swappable, that's a huge L. The quirkiness in some games is getting a little too quirky for my liking. Also, I got Mario Odyssey on here. It's running just okay. I still like how it's not loud and how it's not hot to the touch. It does get hot, but you can handle it without being uncomfortable. But that price, man, I don't know. It's just it's gonna have to really wow me within the next couple weeks. There's no way I'm gonna recommend this thing.
What do you guys think about the MSI Claw? True gaming, grip and game, baby. That's their. If you Google MSI Claw, their tagline is grip and game. I got grossed out holding it. Leave it in the comments below. At me on Twitter, any and all of this other social media garbage. Hey, if you're gonna be at PAX East this weekend, I'm gonna be at PAX. We're doing a signing at 12 on Saturday at the Screenwave or RetroWare booth. I forget what it's called. And next week I'll have a video on some games that I play there. Thank you Sundays for Dogs for sponsoring this video. Don't forget to check them out if you got a little doggo guy. We stream on twitch.tv/wolfden. Some of these clips were from those Twitch streams. Of course, the most important thing that you can do to help support this channel, if you like what you see here, is just subscribe. That helps tremendously. And share this video with a friend who is looking into getting one of these PC handhelds. Thank you very much. Have a good week. I'll be here. This is just a Google Doc.